You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson, and this is the start of Uranus through the houses because, as you will already know, if you've decided to support me on Patreon, you'll be more than aware about Uranus changing signs next week. Going from the sign of Uranus in Aries into Uranus in Taurus. So what we've got here is a little rundown of how Uranus is when it's in a different house, and also what happens when it transits through a house. How is it going to affect you? So this is the first one, Uranus in the first house. So if you think about Uranus, Uranus represents shocks and surprises. It's very much about new technology, new thoughts, new awakenings. It's like the rise of a tide, the rise of new thinking. So in many respects, it is kind of like air-like in the way that it expresses itself. And Uranus as well is like the god of the air. So if you think of lightning, if you think of wind, if you think of how things move in the air, you're talking about like invisible energy. So something that you can't necessarily see. It's like sound waves. You can't see them, but you can feel them, and their effects resonate. Now, if you've got Uranus in the first house is about, obviously, your persona and how you project yourself. If you've got Uranus in the first house, this makes you somebody whose energies are really felt. So people feel you before they see you. Means you're quite a magnetic person, especially if it's, couched next to your ascendant. If it's on the ascendant, you have a very, very magnetic personality. But it creates some kind of aura, some kind of energy force field that people pick up on. So no doubt, people, if they were to describe you with Uranus in the first house, they would describe you as someone that's powerful and someone who carried influence and sway. It would also make you somebody who loved new things and who was quite progressive and forward thinking in the way that they live their life. Also someone that's quite shocking, someone that is probably a straight talker, someone that shoots from the hip, might use swear words a bit more than others, because for you it's more important to get your message across. You're not so worried about niceties. It's about getting your message across, and if you can add a bit of shock into it, all the better, because it has more impact. So a Uranus first house is about impact and getting noticed, I guess. People with first house Uranus tend to go through quite a few phases in life where things are just really sudden and change quite quickly. You're much more likely to be the kinds of people who just sign up on a whim to, go volunteering somewhere. There's also a really strong feeling of humanitarianism. So really strong Uranus types have got a very strong set of ideals and don't really respect the structures that create that create the layered effect in society. Uranian types really like flat hierarchies, where everyone's kind of equal and everyone's on the same page. So as children, they'll demand their independence and demand the kind of rights that adults fully expect. And there'll be quite a few arguments around teenage years. They'll start before then, probably, with Uranus in first house. Independence and freedom and the feeling that you can keep moving and keep making your decisions. In fact, it's probably not moving so much that's important. In the same way as I said that Uranus energy is kind of like a see-through air-like kind of energy. That really fits in with your thoughts and your thinking and your and freedom that you want as a first house Uranian type is the kind of freedom of thought. So being able to make your own decisions, being able to have your own thoughts, being able to communicate in the way you want to and express yourself as you want to is the most important thing. And if you have to move away or do something really drastic to be able to do that, then no doubt you're really prepared to do that. So that kind of describes the Uranus in the first house. Now, when this is going really well, it's all well and good. However, you might come a cropper because people might find your energy a little bit too upstartish, a little bit too eggy. And so your passion and your Uranian signature can sometimes do you a little bit of harm, because people might keep your arm's length a little bit and be less likely to commit to you in a meaningful way, because they're a little bit scared, a little bit worried about how you might react. Your declarations of independence and the way you stand up for your own belief systems and the ideas of freedoms might also put friends off from extending their help to you. So out of all the types, of all the different Uranian placements, it's sometimes a lot harder to help someone with a first house Uranus, because they seem like they don't need help. They just seem to have lots of resources at their fingertips and a kind of devil-may-care attitude. Uranus is also associated with channeling. If you think of invisible air or invisible mental thinking, this kind of invisible force field, very sensitive mediums and clairvoyants and visionaries who come up with ideas that just kind of pop in their head, or words that pop into their mouth. People who channel tend to have a very prominent Uranus on either conjunct a very particular strong planet within their chart, or conjunct one of the angles in particular, like the ascendant, midheaven, etc. So if you have a first house Uranus, which makes it fairly significant anyway, but also have it in a really good relationship or in a strong conjunction to a particular planet, or indeed on the ascendant, then you probably have very strong intuitive skills, where whether you use them to predict the future or to be of use to people almost makes no difference. The thing is, you will be aware that there's times when you have these acts of genius where thoughts just whiz into your head and you don't know quite where they come from. So there is a bit of magic with a very strong Uranus placement, because it leads itself to amazing levels of creativity, because your thinking is so fluid that you're open enough to receive messages or images or strokes of genius. I think it's a little bit like some of those amazing composers that heard the tunes in their head and then committed them. You just played them. It's as if you can see what's about to occur and then act on it. Now, if Uranus is about to go through your first house, which, that marks a really interesting time, because if you think about it, you have to think about where Uranus has just been. So if Uranus has been through your 12th house, it's been going through a real sort of private place of your birth chart that represents all the things you keep secret, the things you try to hide from yourself, some of your hidden enemies as well, and just basic psychological trauma. It might represent some of the things that you've laid to rest, only to have them rediscovered and reawakened as Uranus connected over that part of your life. So the chances are, having had Uranus recently go through your 12th house, that you're due for some kind of real big shake-up, because you'd have learned a lot having Uranus waking up your unconscious mind. It would have caused some kind of internal mayhem. It often coincides with a feeling of depression or anxiety and irritation about the way you're living. So it triggers off past levels of pain and past feelings of frustration at not being free to make your decisions. So any hang-ups that you have, or any shame, guilt or anger that you've hidden in your life to do with not taking priority or taking action on what you wanted, not finding the freedom of the situation. When Uranus has gone over those points in your chart, he's awakened the spirit of independence in you and the desire to get free of your past. So like cutting the cords of the things holding you back and holding you in stasis with unhelpful patterns. So As Uranus moves into the first house, this is actually quite a radical thing. It crosses the ascendant, so it crosses from the unseen, unconscious mind and then comes straight into your life and knocks everyone sideways. Because when Uranus crosses over a key point, it changes your energetics. It changes the way you express yourself, in particular when it goes over the ascendant or the midheaven, for example. It creates an instability and an insecurity in the way you express yourself. And so if you think about the logical progression from it awakening and stirring the need for freedom to cut away at all your old beliefs and all the old insecurities, and then it crosses over into the conscious world, into the world that other people can see. And what happens is it looks like you make a sudden change, a sudden run for independence, a sudden push forward into modernity. It's a time when your thinking changes in quite a critical way. It represents a time when your thinking can get a lot more futuristic, a lot more egalitarian, a lot more, a whole lot less capitalist. You know, it could be that you start embracing a new religion or a new philosophical way of thinking that changes your expression. It wouldn't be unheard of for a woman with long hair to just cut it all off. It's almost like an emancipation of who you were. So all the old values that no longer serve you are cut away. And that's, I think, my analogy with the haircut, something quite dramatic. I mean, hair, it's just hair, but we all get very attached and people get attached to how we seem. So if you to drop the persona that you used to have and this new jarring kind of futuristic person comes in, it creates massive rifts and change in your family, in your situation. If you don't have a family, i.e. You haven't gone to make a family, so if you're living as an independent person, this is quite shocking for people. It can also represent independence from your parents, like true independence, where you really say goodbye to your childhood and say, okay, I'm done there. Because this is you coming forward. It's a moment of independence and cutting away the past and finding a new future. If you are in a relationship and you want to stay in your relationship as Uranus cuts over your ascendant, you need to be aware and prepared for the fact that you're likely to be going through psychological changes that make you question stability and question things that you have to share your life with. So it almost goes against the grain of wanting to be in a relationship. But these aspects happen all the time when people are very, very happy. And what it represents is a need for newness. So I think the thing to be really clear about is what is holding you back and where you would like to be. So if in your relationship that you want to keep on holding on to, or in friendships or whatever kind of relationship it is that you want to hold on to, but you can see there are things that need changing, then this is a time when you need to get very clear about what your overall vision is. Because if change doesn't come in a satisfactory way for you, the level of impatience that you're likely to feel is likely to bubble up and come out as passive-aggressive, or be perceived as a sort of passive-aggressive kind of technique that you have. So other people are going to be seeing you as particularly unstable and uncertain, and so that's going to make them behave in different ways towards you. So you need to be prepared for that. So if there are changes you want to see, it would be really advisable to work out ways where you can inspire the change in people rather than wait for it all to build up and then snap, because snapping and breaking things apart is the natural energy of this transit. And so that kind of energy will come out in some way, shape or form. But when you work with Uranian energy and you're actually looking to break down things purposefully that aren't working for you and just refine and update and make much more slicker what does work for you, then things will tend to go well. It's a great time if you want to reinvent yourself. If you are single, it's a fabulous time to really think about all the freeing things you want to do, the things that would be daring, the things that are life-changing, the things that are scary and exciting and which make the earth shake, if you know what I mean. They're the kinds of things you want to be doing when you have a first house transit of Uranus, because life is exciting and you can make the most of it. And it could be something that changes you and puts you on a completely new course, pretty much forever. So, make the most of this energy as it comes in, because it can be really useful. And ultimately, it's about finding your freedom and also allowing freedom for other people so that you can all be quite equal. Anyway, I hope this first house Uranus podcast has been useful. And if it's raised anything for you that you'd like to talk personally about, then feel free to give me a call.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.